that have shown their interest in attending this webinar. So welcome to the first webinar in the lead up to the Southeast Asia Youth Energy Forum, or SIEF 2025. I hope you're all in good spirits and ready for a discussion that's, according to us at least, both very much urgent and inspiring. My name is Ardi Arsalarahmani. I am the Research Director at Youth for Energy Southeast Asia. We are a youth-led energy collective comprised of youth students, professional, and passionate people working in energy who would like to see the sustainable and just energy future in Southeast Asia. I'll be your master of ceremony for the next an hour and a half or so as we deep dive into one of the biggest questions in our region's energy transition. Before we get started, please note that this session will be recorded for documentation purposes. Kindly keep your microphones muted during the session unless you are invited to speak. If you have any questions during our panel discussion, you can freely drop them in the chat box. And then our team will help manage your questions and provide technical support. And please do stay with us until the end because we will have a quick group photo before we close off. A little bit of an introduction to the session. This event is part of the Road to SIEF 2025, which will be held this year from October 10th to October 12th in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. This year's theme is Youth for Energy Sustainability in Southeast Asia, and it will see us bringing together regional leaders, policymakers, experts, and youth champions to Kuala Lumpur to spark new ideas, deepen cross-country collaborations, and elevate youth voices in climate and the energy transition. Building on the impact of the inaugural 2023 SIEF in Bali, which brought youth recommendations to ASEAN energy ministers. This year's forum will also feature high-level panels, hands-on workshops, fireside chats, visits to energy facilities, as well as the development of a youth statement and project proposal for ASEAN stakeholders. So today's webinar is not just a preliminary event, it's a core part of this conversation that we're trying to build up and maintain that momentum towards the October's main forum. And our focus today is about EVs, which is a hot topic in the region. And we have this sort of provocative and important rhetorical question as our title on whether they're really clean. We're honored to be joined by our esteemed panel of experts from diverse background, Mrs. Rika Safrina from the ASEAN Center for Energy, Dr. Aloysius Joko Purwanto from the Economic Research Institute for ASEAN and East Asia area, Dr. Jakapong from Chulalongkorn University, and Mr. Rezaiuddin Zakaria from Electrum. And our conversation will be guided by our moderator, Jitsai Santaputra, or she usually goes by Tata, the co-founder of Youth for Energy Southeast Asia. But before we begin the discussion, we will now have a brief scene-setting segment with such a complex and rapidly evolving topic as today's title. We believe it's essential to make sure that we're all on the same page. And therefore, this scene setting isn't just about reciting facts. It's about providing a clear and honest snapshot of where Southeast Asia is within its EV journey, as well as acknowledging both the hypes and hurdles. For this particular segment, I'm pleased to introduce my colleague Azaria Haikal Ahmed, or Haikal as he goes by, the research officer at Youth for Energy Southeast Asia, who will ground us into the realities, challenges, and opportunities defining today's EV debate. Haikal, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Hardy. Okay. Okay, good afternoon, everyone, or good night, I think, in Japan. So, in here, I will introduce to you the scene setting of this panelist discussion. Can next? Okay, good afternoon. My name is Ajarek Haikal Ahmad, and I'm research officer of Yacht for Yacht Energy Southeast Asia. And next. At first, we'll talk about the transport emission in Southeast Asia. Transport emission have been rising in every single year. except for the COVID-19 lockdowns, as you can see in here. Meanwhile, the EV adoption is picking up speed, but in the figure on the right, as you can see, most of the EV adoption in the big cities it's in urban center, specific fields, and especially for two-wheelers. Next. This transition to EV also align with our survey that 84% of youth intend to use EV as their vehicle. So it's believed that EV will be more distributed in the all area, not only the urbans. However, the question still seems. Next. Is EV evolution really clean? Next. In dense cities across Southeast Asia, removing tailpipe pollution from the vehicle can mean a clear air for a million and fewer respiratory illness. And there's some another side of benefits. They are quite quieter, reducing noise pollution, and that's already have a lot of it in the Congo's urban street. However, the tailpipe emission is only one part of the story. We still must talk about the grid and the system itself. The electricity that powers this EV are still needs to be generated, and in many Asian countries, the electricity is come from coal and gas. If we ignore where the power came from, we risk overestimating the climate benefit of the EV adoption. And look these numbers. The grid emission in Java, Madura, Bali is around 0.9 tons CO2 per megawatt hour, while in Philippines, in Mindanao, is about 0.8. That's mean an EV charged today in this grid could still be responsible for significant carbon emission. We just shift the pollution from a vehicle to the power plant. However, this doesn't mean the EV are a bad idea. It means we need to think of them not just as vehicle, but also the part of the bigger system for decarbonization. EV can become a smart load that help integrate renewables, enable demand side of flexibility, and drive grid upgrades. If we align the EV growth with the power sector decarbonization, we can multiply the benefit for both climate and the public health. So, what can make EV really clean? There's four ingredients in this. The first one, decarbonize the supply to accelerate the low carbon electricity, shape the EV demand to match a clean generation, build build green grids that can carry and balance a new load, and design infrastructure for how people actually travel, for like in dense swap or charging for two-wheelers, depot charging for fleets, public and workplace charging for cars. So the EV revolution for Southeast Asia is not just about the cleaner street. It's about the aligning vehicle grids and the whole system to deliver the real climate benefits. And that's exactly what we're here today to explore with our panelists. And Ardi, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you so much, Haikal, for that introduction. Without further ado, I will now hand over to Jitsai Santaputra Ortata, our moderator for today, who will begin with introducing the panelists before heading on to the discussion. Jitsai, the mic is yours.
Yes, good afternoon and evening to some of you guys in the call. It is so lovely to be here with you guys on this Friday afternoon, and special thank yous to our panelists, our scene setters, and the organizers. Without delaying it further, I would like to introduce our four top-notch panelists. First off is Ms. Rita Safina. As mentioned earlier, she is the Senior Officer of Energy Modeling and Policy Planning. I'm going to just say first off that everybody's CVs, as I've reviewed, is exceptional. So, I think the list speaks for itself. Her involvement with UNECE, doing SCI advocacy and a lot of research, as well as work with ACE on the 8th ASEAN Energy Outlook, which was released this year, I believe. I'm sure we'll get more information on that during the discussion. And I will also, when we start the discussion phase, I would also like each panelist to also kind of maybe give the most recent highlights that they want to share with the audience as well. Next, please. The next panelist, we have Dr. Aloysius Joko Probanto, and I'm so sorry if I butcher anybody's names. I would like to apologize in advance. He is the energy economist at the Economic Research Institute for ASEAN and East Asia area. And since 2018 is working with area, but before that has been doing a lot of work in Belgium and doing a lot of work focused on energy, mobility, and transportation, and has just many, many years in Europe. So I think that will also give a nice color to what's happening in the ASEAN space in the current agenda. Next, please. Our third panelist, we have the head of battery infrastructure and go-to-market at Electrum, which is based in Indonesia. My apologies. His name is Rizajiddin Zakaria, and is a leader in the EV space as an individual leader, as well as the company itself, which I'm looking so forward to hearing more details about the battery swapping. And he has a master's degree as strategic management and management of technology from Erasmus University in Rotterdam and Delft University of Technology. So this will be very exciting. And our last but not least, our final panelist is Mr. Jakapong Pongtanai Sawan with a PhD. He is working at the Energy Research Institute, or ERI, at Chulalongkorn University, based in Bangkok. His work focuses around reducing GHG emissions in the road transport sector. So we'll get a nice dimension of academic and research on this idea of decarbonization. He's done work with UNDP, with GIZ, and the Thailand Ministry of Energy and Ministry of Transport. So this will be a great addition to our panel lineup. Of course, and for more details, please check out their LinkedIn and their profiles. I'm sure there's a lot you guys can learn from them. And next, please. Okay, so let me dive into our panel discussion. So I would like to throw the first question off to Ms. Rika Safrina at the ASEAN Center for Energy. And at this point, I would love if any other panelists, like once the panelist has answered the question, if you have any thoughts or feedback, please feel free to jump in and make this a lively discussion. So to Ms. Rika Safrina, in simple terms, what makes an EV clean or not clean in ASEAN? And what are one or two grid factor matters that are most relevant for real emissions? Is there any maximum grid intensity that makes EV more clean than internal combustion engine vehicles?
All right. Thank you so much, Jitsai, for your warm introduction. And thank you so much for inviting me to this webinar with the very important topics. And it's really glad to hear and see your the Youth for Southeast Asia mission in engaging the youth in the energy sector in ASEAN. So yeah, to answer your question, Jitsai, in Southeast Asia, the transport sector is ranked as the second highest energy consumption sector after the industry. And our ASEAN Energy Outlook is also projected that this trend is still keeping the same trends until 2050. And then also transport is responsible for majority of oil demand and maybe around 20% of the region's greenhouse gas emissions. While the oil production in ASEAN has continuously declined, it is replaced by the oil imports. So with this growing reliance on fossil fuel imports, ASEAN could face serious energy security challenges. So those are some of the drivers in ASEAN to electrify their transportation sector. So ASEAN is witnessing the EV growth. We can see that there are accelerating markets such as in Thailand, Indonesia, and Vietnam that is supported by their ambitious targets, policy supports, and manufacturing of EVs. But when we talk about whether EVs are really clean in ASEAN, I think it depends on the grid that they are being charged into. That I think it's already also explained by, during the scene setting presentation just now, that one of the factors of seeing whether the EV is clean or not is through the carbon intensity or grid emission factors that in the electricity generation. So if your the country's electricity comes mostly from fossil fuels such as coal, because that is still the case in some ASEAN countries. So that means charging an EV it means just moving the pollution from the car to the power plants. So it's not, so while EVs itself has zero emissions, but they can have higher emissions than the usual petrol or hybrid car if the grid is still dirty enough, we can say like that. So so those grid emissions factor should be considered really, should be taken into account really carefully. And then the second factor is also about the efficiency losses, because when electricity arrive at the car's battery, it's not in the perfect condition. I mean, it has some losses during transmission, distribution, and in the charging process, usually around 10 or 15%. So that means the carbon intensity per kilometer is higher than what's really measured at the power plant. So this can also have slightly changing in the numbers. So when we see when you ask if there is any number for maximum grid intensity that makes EVs cleaner than the ICE or internal combustion engines, yes. If I think also like in the graph in the presentation before, we saw that among ASEAN member states like Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, and Vietnam generally have a higher grid emission factor, higher than I think around 600 grams per kilowatt hour. But the other ASEAN member states have lower than those number. But the number is changing, aligned with the rise of their renewable energy share in the power sectors, because ASEAN member states are now heading towards increasing the renewable energy share in the electricity generation and also install power capacity. So in summary, in ASEAN, whether EVs are clean today depends on the power sectors and also in the vehicle itself.
Yeah, thank you so much. What a interesting statistic that you mentioned I picked up on was the electricity losses in the whole process, and not just at the generation, is almost 10 to 15% more, which is, I think that's kind of like at a outside looking in, outside the transport sector and the energy sector, that really isn't taken into account. So thank you for that information. I'd like to just move on to our speaker, our next speaker, Dr. Aloysius. Where do EVs already make economic sense in ASEAN? What type of modes, what type of use cases, and where do they not make economic sense yet? So just maybe a broad overview, and I will, allow this to be open and an open discussion. There'll be more rounds of questions coming, so you don't have to kind of say everything all at once.
Hello. Yes. Thank you so much. May I call you Jitsai, yes. So, an afternoon all, and thank you for inviting me to this very interesting discussion. So, first, when we talk about the economic sense, when we look into a vehicle, whatever the type it is, like internal combustion engine or electric vehicles, then we should talk about one type of indicator or like a variable, which is the total cost of ownership. Total cost of ownership means like, yeah, the whole expense that you need to, yeah, need to pay to own, to maintain, and then to pay all the expenses related to your vehicles. And this is calculated in the whole life cycle of that vehicle. And we can have that kind of total cost of ownership in terms of total cost, for example, yeah, and then or like total cost by divided by the kilometer that the vehicle will be traveling in its whole lifetime. So when we talk about the total cost of ownership, to be able to talk about the economic sense, then we will also include in our understanding is about capital costs. So this is like the net vehicle purchase price, whether you pay it like in cash or whether you pay it in installments plus some part of equity or like the first payment. And then other components like the value-added tax, import tariff, retail discount that you get perhaps from the showroom, registration fee, and other fee that you pay to the, I don't know, police station or to the government. And then you have operational costs like energy prices, surcharge costs, excise duty, tax and fee, other related to vehicle operation. We have also maintenance costs. That means like preventive maintenance costs. When we look into like the catalog, then of course the manufacturer will tell you to do the maintenance every, I don't know, 5,000 kilometer or 10,000 kilometer or every 1 or 2 years. And then we have like technical control costs. Technical control and inspection in ASEAN countries relate to this activity mostly conducted in the commercial vehicle and not yet in the passenger vehicles. And then we have administration costs, license renewal. That is the tax that we pay, for example, for the government every year for our vehicle to be able to circulate. And then we have battery replacement costs or leasing costs. So electric vehicle will means that we will use battery, and this battery makes most of the cost for the electric vehicle, and this makes also most of the price of the electric vehicle. So battery replacement is one thing that comes as a new variable when we consider to purchase a vehicle now, especially when you purchase an EV. And also at the end, we have residual value. That means what will be the value of your car at the end of life, at its end of life. So when we calculate this total cost of ownership, we also consider what kind of model, what kind of discount rate that we have in the economy, like yeah, the value of things are decreasing with time, and then the fuel economy, the battery efficiency, of course, the kilometer travel that yeah, we are going to do, ownership and usage model of the vehicles. So when we talk about the total cost of ownership of internal combustion engine or like gasoline fuel or diesel fuel vehicle, then the biggest component of those costs are energy costs. So that means like the fuel costs to operate the vehicle. On the other way, when we talk about the electric vehicles, then the biggest component of the cost of the total cost of ownership is the purchase cost. So, but in contrary, the energy costs or like the charging costs of electric vehicles are in general much more cheaper than internal combustion engine with regards to the fueling, gasoline or diesel. So there are all of these variables, and when and where do electric vehicles start to make economic sense? It depends on the country. It depends also on the type of vehicles. For example, like with regard to the energy costs, then in countries where fuel are not are heavily subsidized, like in Indonesia, Malaysia, or Brunei Darussalam, then internal combustion engine vehicles, that gasoline or diesel vehicles, they are in their total cost of ownership is still cheaper in general than electric vehicles. And also, but we look also into the purchase cost, for example, and we know that in Thailand, in Indonesia, government are giving a lot of incentive for people to buy electric cars. And in that sense, then we can consider that the purchase cost or like the capital cost to acquire those electric vehicles are quite cheap actually. But then if you look into the statistic or the studies, then in the study that I've been doing also in my institution area, then we see that the modes that are starting to enter like the economic sense of electric vehicles are in fact motorcycles. And so electric motorcycles in terms of total cost of ownership are in general already cheaper than the internal combustion engine or gasoline fueled motorcycles. And it becomes cheaper, still more cheaper for the electric motorcycles when we can swap the battery. So the batteries don't belong to the owners. We don't buy the batteries, but the owners pay kind of subscription for the batteries to be swapped in some places. That's when we see the case where the electric vehicles start to make economic sense. So okay, back again. Then in general, total cost of ownership of electric vehicles are still higher than internal combustion engine. But we see that in some cases, like motorcycles, it gets cheaper now. And it depends also in the business model, as I mentioned. Using swap battery is the most economic one now. But again, when we see that currently total cost of ownership, like representing by the purchase cost of electric vehicle, is decreasing, we need to consider that it is supported by a lot of tax incentive from the government, especially for cars. For how long this kind of incentive will remain there? How strong or how strong are governments to keep on like letting the revenue don't go to their budget? Then it depends on the economy of the countries. But I don't think that tax incentive will go for a long period. Thank you.
All right, that was so very insightful, especially on what it means for the economic sense and the concept of total cost of ownership. That's super important, vital when we think about the bigger picture, and also touching on battery swapping. And I'm sure Mr. Zakaria will jump on that keyword when it comes to his turn. But up next for our panelists, I would like to pass the mic to Dr. Jakapong from ERI. From your city level work, what basic checks should a city do before pushing or promoting electric vehicles in that city? Thinking about distribution capacity, depot sites, curb policies, tariff readiness, tariff like electricity tariff pricing, and we will bring up your slides. Please take it away.
Thank you very much. Thank you much to having me today, and it's a very pleasure to join the discussion today. And the question from me in my past is about the our city in ASEAN is ready for EV. It's like to start to say that the readiness is not just simple that how many charging stations that we have or how many EV that have been sold in the country or in the cities, but it's about the urban system, like the energy system, transport system, or digital technology, or the governance, the policy, the measure is prepare for integrate the EV in the city or transportation of the city or not. And let me start with this slide. Look back to the transformation of transportation. That's why we try to promote the EV. Some panelists has already mentioned about the have many trends and purpose to promote the EV, and the EV is just only one in a bigger transformation of the future urban mobility. The future urban mobility is mean that we need the more efficient, clean, and safe transport or mobility service, and it can be shown in the easy framework of we call the CASE framework: connected, autonomous, share, and electric. The connected is mean that in the future, actually it's now, the vehicles available has an ability to communicate with other device or other vehicle infrastructure, power grid, or other digital platform to use it more efficient, and it will lead to another level of the technology is we call it autonomous, which means vehicle can capable to navigate without human input. They can use the sensor, the advanced control system, or even the AI. They can travel by themselves. That we can have many example or the test made or the showcase in ASEAN, like in Singapore or in Thailand or in other countries. And for others, mobility service is that we call the share mobility. You can use it now. Right? We call mobility as a service. You can use Grab, Gojek, or Uber for the urban logistic or any purpose. And finally, the powertrain of the technology, the vehicle technology, it changed from the internal combustion engine, which we use for more than 100 years, to the electric vehicles. This is the big picture of transformation of the future urban mobility. And next slide, please. And for the question, our city are ready for the EV? I think there are three essential checks before we can say that our city are ready or not. First thing is the infrastructure. The infrastructure is mean the charging station or the electricity supply for the vehicles. As mentioned that before, that we use the internal combustion engine, the supply of energy is a gas station, the petrol station. We use the liquid fuel, and we totally change from the liquid fuel to the electricity. The infrastructure that we need is the charging station. But it's not easy that it like the chicken and egg problem, that without enough charger, people are hesitant to buy the EV, right? Or without enough EV on the road or in the city, in the country, it had to justify the investment of the chargers. This is a difficult point to start to promote the EV in the country or in the cities. And then the second important thing is come with the policy, and government should be take care of this. In Thailand or in other countries, most of government will invest if they have a plan to promote the EV. They have to start to invest in the charging station first. In Thailand, we promote the charging station begin with the government office, the area in the government office, and encourage the private sector to invest on the public charging as well. And after that, we have to integrate everything into the mobility plan, transport plan, or even the climate change plan in the country. For Thailand, we hope that the EV will be the promising technology to make Thailand achieve the national designated, the NDC, the climate target in transport sector. That's why when the government give the policy direction and it make the private sector confidence to invest in the infrastructure. We start the investment in the public charging station in Thailand maybe about 10 years. And now we have more than 10,000 charging stations around the country. And we also not only invest in the charging station, we also develop the technology, digital technology application to use this the role of the ITS to integrate with the charging station or to promote the EV in Thailand as well. And to do all of this, not only the government will take a major role, and we need some what I can say that we need a key person. A key person maybe some organization to be a coordinator between the stakeholder in the EV ecosystem. And in Thailand, we have the Electric Vehicle Association of Thailand who do this job. They a non-profit organization. They engaging all stakeholders across the academia, industry, including the electricity generator, the charging station, technology, car automaker, and government as well. All the stakeholders in the EV ecosystem together and develop the roadmap to develop or technology in the supply chain of the EV. And we also have the what we call the pilot project to start the some case like the charging consortium and smart payment solution and make it more efficient and make it some example for the private sector and the user to confident to use the EV in the future. And next slide, please. This is the beginning to promote the EV, and EV not only used for the private use. We can they can have a new mobility service by using the EV as well that we call sharing mobility. Like in Singapore, also have the Blue SG, which is a sharing car sharing. Use all of the fleet that they provide is the EV. And in Thailand, we also have the test bed, the sandbox in Chulalongkorn University in we started in last 10 years, and we just stopped the service during the COVID. And yes, not only the EV technology, we include the ITS technology and other technology to promote the use of EV, to promote the clean mobility in the urban area. And for the last thing that I would like to mention is that not only the technology that we need to make user or the private sector or other to confidence to promote the EV. The answer for ASEAN city ready for EV is different answer in each country, right? Some have take the first step already and doing very well to promote the technology, and other is have a plan and try to develop the important technology, the essential technology. There's 4 things that we have to look into. The first thing is we need a robust infrastructure. We need the intelligent digital system, and we need a supportive technology, and we have to integrate to the promotion of the EV, the adoption of EV into the broader mobility strategy of the country or the city as well. And last but not least, the EV adoption must go hand in hand with the electricity grid decarbonization. Otherwise, we just move the emission from the tailpipe to the power plant, as you already mentioned in the first panelist. That it's very difficult to do that, but we have to plan. And EV adoption is not a short term, but we need the long term planning to promote this kind of technology. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jakapong. Now, during this last question for this first round, to Mr. Zakaria about Electrum's work, what were 2 or 3 of the biggest hurdles to scaling e-motorcycles and battery swapping? And how did your team solve those problems? Maybe they're regarding site access or CapEx or downtime. Like, what are the difficulties? And if there are any, difficulties, particularly on like people usage, like people interaction with the technology, we would love to hear that as the private sector on the ground working on the EV.
Got it. Thanks. Hi everyone, Riza here from Electrum. Super excited to be here and thanks for having us over. So maybe before I answer the question, a quick intro on Electrum, who we are and our work, right? So Electrum is a e-two-wheeler ecosystem company. We are a subsidiary of GoTo Group and TBS Energy. And we're mainly based in Indonesia right now, still in Jakarta. And our goal or our vision is pretty much to electrify two-wheeler fleets, starting from the commercial sector and then going all the way to the retail consumer sector down the road, right? But our problem was, or at least our opportunity was Indonesia being the world's, I think, 3rd biggest two-wheeler market, 120 million bikes. And each year, 6 million new bikes on the road, and then hundreds of billions of kilometers being ridden every year. That was for us the opportunity to start. And we've been running for 3 years. And I think the question from Jitsai was, so what was the challenges, the hurdles to start, right? So I think number one, the core one that even still today we're still figuring out is, at the end of the day, we need to figure out what is the value of these EV to whoever is going to use it, right? And then what will drive them to convert? Because it's not an adoption per se, it's more of a conversion, right? This is not people riding horses and then moving to, say, a gasoline bikes, but it's more towards people already having a workable and very efficient solution in the form of ICE into something that's a bit more riskier, something that's a bit more a lot more question marks, right? More uncertain, but for what, right? I think that's the number one question that we had when we started building the solution. I think what we wanted is like, hey, let's try to save the world and try to do this, but then unfortunately not everyone is able to have that royalty to say have that as a priority. And so we really try to think about, so what value is the most sticky for people to move, right? And so in the end of the day, like financials is a big piece of it, but also interestingly, other than financials, it's also about access to getting vehicles, for example. Another one is comfort, for example. Like we've seen some of our users, in our case, two-wheeler users who say, oh, sure, I might be only saving 10% or 5%. But I ride this and I don't feel tired when I go home. I can still play with my children, or I can actually do other stuff rather than having my body hurt when I go back from working, right? And so I think because we focus predominantly on the commercial sector, that was the number one thing we tried to figure out, like, hey, what's the value for people to convert, right? And then after the conversion is done, how do we make them stick? So that's probably item number one. Then I think number two is about, okay, if we know the value, then the next question is how do we distribute? How do we get people to try? And how do you get people to use? And how do you get people to access this? So now it becomes a business model problem, because when we think about motorcycles, we're always thinking about purchase, right? I think Mr. Jakapong had shared about, Mr. Joko had shared about cost, total cost, and I think about upfront cost. But then when we talk about commercial drivers, mostly they're also unbankable segments, right? They cannot get access to purchasing through traditional means. So how do we think about getting this EV, which is also not cheap to them? Part of our solution was working with multi-finance, doing a rental model and then a rent-to-own model. So we lower the barrier to try. Now that also helps with stickiness, because now it's easy to try and then they see the value and then they stick and then now they want more, right? But I think for us that lowering that barrier to try through business model innovation was a big thing, so that scaling was possible. If we had sticked with, say, conventional methods of selling each individual unit, it would have been very tough for us to grow as fast as we could, right? I think for context, right now we're having like almost 6,000 units on the road for commercial drivers, and doing like 15 to 20 million kilometers a month, right, for using our bikes. And then finally, number three is, after those two are done, then it's about capital. It's not cheap, right? We need to buy the bikes, we need to make the bikes, we need to deploy infrastructure. Where does that come from? How do we become legitimate so that financing companies trust us? We were fortunate enough Electrum is fortunate enough to have shareholders who are distinguished companies. But I think the challenges of EVs, especially for two-wheelers, where it's mainly startups, is getting that legitimacy to say, hey, I'm willing to give financing for you. So for us, the third problem was probably a bit easier to solve. Not easy, but easier compared to, say, our competitors, right? And at the end of the day, it just takes some level of traction, some time, proof that our product is good, that it's reliable, dependable, so that multi-finance and financing companies and other financiers wants to say, okay, I believe in your product, I trust in the business model, let me put my money in, and so we can have capital to grow. But in the end, like, these problems are still there. We're still solving some of them. It's not a 3-month solutioning. It's almost a 3-year solutioning now for us, and we're still solving some of the problems. But for us, that's mainly the 2-3 key hurdles and some of the solutions we've tried to do.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much. There's really interesting insights from more of like a private sector, a private player, on how the hurdles are. I like the rental model. I think that is a nice way to lower the barrier to try, which is the wording you used. So for the second round of questions, I'm going to ask it to be a bit more of like a fireside. So just give me your kind of like key insights. Just keep it a bit short, and this will be just directed individually. I'm going to fire the first one off to Dr. Joko. How should energy and transport ministries coordinate to avoid EVs' increased coal burn outcomes? And maybe coal specifically for Indonesia, but more like the dominant fossil fuel of those countries. So kind of just from your experience and like the research at AREA, what would be the key message you'd give, perhaps like in a elevator pitch to the ministries?
Yes, thank you so much. So I guess what we have started to discuss, but ASEAN, I mean, we are ASEAN, like, but we forgot to do is, yeah, to continue with the plan to have the fuel efficiency or fuel economy standard. So in Europe, for example, they started it very early, like in like the first decade of the year 2000, like by 2010, they set a target that all the new vehicles to be sold by 2015 by all companies should reach a certain threshold. For example, if I remember, by 2015 it was that the emission should be like 120 gram per vehicle kilometer. So if I'm a car manufacturer A or car manufacturer B, I can produce internal combustion engine, gasoline, diesel vehicles in combination with electric vehicles, and all of these vehicles that I would like to produce, I would like to sell in Europe, in the European Union, should in average reach that kind of amount of emission. Should not be above that. So, for example, I can, if it is like 120, I can still produce some of my vehicles beyond 120 gram per kilometer, like my gasoline car 125 or 130. But I also need to produce like hybrid electric vehicles, which has less emission from on that, like maybe 100 or 95. And so the whole fleet that I sell to the market should reach or should be below that threshold. And in the EU, it goes from 120 in 2015 to I don't know, maybe 95 in 2020. This way, the car manufacturers will think, or vehicle manufacturers will think, what kind of configuration between the fleet that they would like to sell. And this kind of thing in ASEAN, we discussed in 2018, but up to now, 7 years after that, I haven't heard any much more serious discussion on that. This is very interesting because once we come up with this kind of fuel economy or energy efficiency standard, then it means that electric vehicles also has emission, as mentioned by Ms. Safrina earlier, or other speakers, that in fact we in the power plant that we still use coal or gas, they are still emitting, and this becomes the emission factor of electric vehicles. So electric vehicles doesn't emit zero emission, it emits something, and for sure in ASEAN it's quite big. So therefore, having this kind of standard, it will oblige car manufacturer to think on how to go more to electrify their fleet that they would like to sell, and for the energy ministries in ASEAN also to think how they need to reduce the emission factor. That means the emission that they have in their power plant. So that is a very practical. Of course, it will cost a lot of discussion, and it costs a lot of money to have transition in the power plant, and to ask the car manufacturers also to join this kind of strategy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I think that's a great point about the fuel economic standard and trying to standardize so it's easier to use across the border. I'd like to throw the next question to Ms. Safrina from ACE. Perhaps a bit more detail on perhaps the ASEAN energy outlook, if any of that touches on, urban, on like mobility or transport, and as well as perhaps if you have any comments regarding the fuel standardization or other standardizations regarding to electrification and transport across the ASEAN or sub-ASEAN regions. Would love to hear what ACE has been working on in that dimension.
Right. Thank you so much, Jitsai, for the questions. Yeah, in ASEAN Energy Outlook, although we did a modeling for each ASEAN countries, but then we combine it into a regional result and publish it to the report in the regional perspectives. So we really see the trends that the electric vehicles penetration in ASEAN countries are rising in the last few years. That is due to the strong ambitious targets and policies from each ASEAN member states, and tackling specific issues and challenges in electric vehicles. For example, some of the challenges that we saw is, first is the public acceptance of the citizens of ASEAN member states whether it is about the risk or safety of using these EVs, and also about the price. But then tackling or answering the price the price burden to the customers, or even also to the manufacturers or producers. There are already some of supporting policies and regulations that were being mandated by the countries, by ASEAN countries, such as tax incentives and tax reductions for EVs materials. So those kind of and also the infrastructure, to build the infrastructure, as mentioned before by Dr. Jakapong, it is very crucial and important aspect for accelerating the EV adoption in the countries, in the ASEAN countries. So those kind of challenges that already tried to address by the ASEAN member states. And then to see also not only long term, like the one we did with Outlook, we did the long term projection and also policy recommendations until 2050, but also we see for the near term strategies, such as to see who needs to be changed actually in the EVs perspective. For example, they can start from the high mileage fleets, such as buses, taxis, ride-hailing cars, and delivery vans, because they drive a lot of kilometers. So if those vehicles can add up together, it can cut emissions very quickly. So I think some of ASEAN member states already consider this strategy. For example, Singapore has been working for several years to electrify buses and taxis first, and they have also target to achieve 100% cleaner energy public bus fleet and taxis by 2040. And then for policy and regulations, perhaps the governments can also introduce like time of use tariffs. It is a special electricity tariff that can charge customers in different amounts based on different times. So this can the introduction of this mechanism could attract EV penetration, because it while not burdening the grid load balance, because it can provide a lower cost of charging during the overnight hours compared to the peak tariff when the vehicle is at the workplace on the day, for example. So yeah, those kind of strategies can be adopted by the ASEAN member states in the short term and long term.
Thank you. That's super insightful. I like to touch on the time of use tariffs. We have a simple version of that in Thailand, and I know that in Europe it's like a very, very like a lot more advanced type and seasonalities as well. So that's really interesting. I would like to throw the next question. It'll be the same question, but both to Mr. Zakaria and to Dr. Jakapong. In regards to, lost my train of thought for a second. My train of thought. In regards to access to EVs, both perhaps both two-wheelers and other types of EVs, in your respective studies and your respective companies, has there been any noticeable difference in sentiment towards the use of EV? I know there's mention about risk, safety, pricing earlier, between kind of like the younger generation, like perhaps university students, or like early like young adults versus like an older generation. So for Mr. Zakaria, it would definitely be on like on your customer base. Are you seeing more youth? Is it because of like the usage of apps perhaps, and the access to phone and the functioning? And for Mr. Jakapong, Dr. Jakapong specifically, from the sandbox project you mentioned, how does this dimension of demographic of the users play out in what you've been able to observe, or if you've had any qualitative interviews or discussion, or like focus group discussions? We'd love to hear a bit about that. I'll just pass it to Mr. Zakaria first.
Thanks. I think it's an interesting one, yeah. So So I think number one, the way we cut this segment is less so through demography first, but more on just like the use case. So for example, at least for two-wheelers, we segment people through, hey, is it for commercial use case or for personal mobility, right? And when we talk about commercial use case, then it's about I think Rika had mentioned, sure, you're doing like 100+ kilometers a day. And that just makes savings easier, but also the durability of the product needs to be more, right? Because it's a two-edged sword in a way. We're able to bring value, but also our bar for product is higher. But then for the personal mobility, it's more towards well, for EV, then they don't save more money, but then what? Is it comfort? Is it coolness? Is it part of the new generation that's environmental conscious, right? I think that's the question mark that the industry is still trying to figure out. Because adoption at the consumer scale is less predominant, say, versus commercial, right? But then when we go to the second level, which is youth and say the older generation, I don't have data per se, but I think from anecdotal and just from customers coming in, so just to set the context, what EV unlocks is pretty much just a bigger source of energy, right? And that unlocks data, and that unlocks communication between device and the internet much more easier. In our case, IoT becomes so very predominant in our product, and we get easily hundreds of millions of rows of data every day, just from usage, mileage, location, speed, etc., etc. That was for ICE is just almost impossible, right? Or very difficult to get. It's not built in. But that also means that the app becomes, or the digital interface, in this case, the mobile app or the website app becomes very easy to build. And our swapping as well is also a bit different from traditional gas fuels, right? Gas fuel pumps, where you come in and then you have a service station saying, hey, how much do you want? And then they would fill it for you. Whereas swapping is very much independent. Like you come to the cabinet, no one is there. You need to put the battery, you need to top up in your application. It's a more digital heavy journey for the users, right? And what we see is that the youth is actually very easily, it's intuitive for the younger generation, right? It's like, hey, okay, this is the app. I know how to top up. I know using the payment gateway. I can use it with my e-wallet, with my blah and blah and blah. That's easy. So, but then if it's for the older generation, it's a bit well, because it's for ride hailing, they're used to using app, right? So that makes the job a bit easier. But for, say, for example, our B2B customers who used to just use fuel bikes, now they have to use the app to do a lot of stuff, and then they have to put in a non-manned swapping. It becomes quite daunting, right? We have feedback where it's like, oh, I don't like that the app is just too difficult. There's a lot of hassle and blah, blah. So that for us was a new insight. It's like, oh, actually, when we think about inclusivity, we also have to think about how to make this as simple as possible or as close as possible to the experience of an ICE vehicle for even the older generations, right? I think being a digital first generation, which is the younger people, it's a bit more straightforward. But then it's very true in the case that it's not huge in a way, oh, older generation doesn't want it, but we have seen cases where it's just there's more barriers, additional barriers of conversion because of the digital nature of say EV, I would say. And I think for cars it's the same, where with all of the single panel control for all of your cars is making a bit hard for say people who are used with manual buttons, right?
Yeah, thank you so much. And to Dr. Jakapong, maybe takeaways from the Sandbox project at Jula.
Yeah, I mentioned about the Sandbox project that we try to promote the sharing mobility at the early day before we had the public platform like the Grab or others platform. I have to mention before that in this service, this sharing mobility service is just in the campus in Chulalongkorn, the main campus. That before that, it's very big campus. Before that, the mobility in the campus is we have the fixed route bus. Before that, and we converted to the EV bus, and we developed the application. The student can check the status of the buses and the route, and they can plan for their schedule. And after that, we promote the use of sharing mobility, and with the coordinator with the Toyota, we have the very small one passenger EV, small one, and the project is quite successful, and the student familiar to use the application or use the ITS to manage their mobility, and they're familiar to using the sharing vehicles, which is normally is not we have familiar with our own vehicle, right? And we have to share. They have to do how to manage the sharing vehicle. After they use, they have to plug in to charge, recharge the vehicle. They know how to use it. They're familiar to use that. And after that, we have some interviews, and the new generation student have a new lifestyle. That it means that they can travel without own the vehicles. They know there are other mobility choice, which actually is the service is most likely the personal vehicles, but you don't need to own the vehicles. It's more convenient than use public transport, but it's cheaper in terms of the total cost of ownership, right? You don't need to buy, you don't need to maintenance, you just pay for pay per use as the mobility service. And for now, we also have others sharing mobility like the e-scooter in the campus, and we also have we call the electric tuk-tuk, the three-wheelers, which service as the first mile and last mile transportation mobility between the metro station, which in Siam Square and other place around the campus. And the electric tuk-tuk, the three-wheeler, is also service as the on-demand. You can call and they will pick you up and share with others customer. It's also the good mobility service in the campus. And new generation easy to accept to use this kind of mobility, and they not feel it's uncomfortable. It's okay for them. And from the interview that in the lifestyle the change, many people don't need to buy a car, a motorcycle, or others private vehicles. They use this kind of platform instead. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's really interesting about the mentality of the younger generation to not having necessarily to have ownership, but still be able to have that experience of having their own private car, like for rent. We're almost at the Q&A stage, and this has been really interesting. So I'm gonna give another round of questions. Like, will be one question for all four panelists to give an answer first before we move into the Q&A. And there has been a lot of buzz in the questions I'm seeing. So our staff, our team will be picking the best questions, and I will be sending them out. But for this stage, I know the discussion about is the EV really clean, as we've discussed so far. It's very complicated. It's very different for each of the countries. So to that extent, from your experience with like the coming from very different sectors and different backgrounds, if you had to give one advice, and you can pick who advice you give to, if it's like a policymaker, if it's like a big corporation like Toyota or a big EV manufacturer. So you have your choice of who this industry or political leader of which country you want to direct this advice to, is if you had to give them advice on how to make the EV industry as a whole more less carbon intensive, whether it be like a quick win, like maybe something they can do in the next year, or like a long-term planning, or what type of change you'd like to see, what would those be? And I will start with Ms. Safrina first.
Sure. Maybe for the quick solution, like in the cities and in the urban areas, like prioritize to prioritize high pollution zones that have many EVs or many traffics or many transportations in the area. So if those transportations in the traffic areas can be converted into electricity, that will gain a lot of benefits, such as the local air quality will be improved, and also the health or the public health of the society or community around those zones. So targeting those high pollution zones first, and also the specific vehicles types like buses or taxis or delivery vans.
Thank you. To Mr. Joko from area.
Yes, thank you so much. So, yeah, I think like it's a very difficult question actually, because it is a cross-spatial, and yeah, and different area has different challenges, but also different opportunities. So I would like to say that yeah, electrification is kind of the final destination, but to get there, then we are not talking only about power plant, about changing a vehicle propulsion, or about what will be the user preferences. But we are also talking about many things, such as the automotive industry and economic growth, and like yeah, equality, so that yeah, at the beginning, or like towards the next 10 years, each of the I would like to mention, like at the country level, so like each ASEAN countries can see what they have, can see what the strength they have in automotive sector, in the power plant, in the electric in the power generation system, and also the differences that they have in terms of socio-demographic. So like the first pathway that will be that makes the most suitable and affordable way for them to get to the next step, to the electrification. So it can be like a hybrid electric vehicle bridging, or like directly to the BEV, battery electric vehicle, when they have a very clean electricity, like in Laos PDR, unlike in other areas, in Indonesia, some areas. But also they need to consider what will be the clean mobility that they would like to have. I think that we don't need to copy what we have in the big cities like Jakarta, Manila, or Bangkok transportation system to the second class in Indonesia or in other areas. I mean, at some point they are good, but at some point they are like a bad example. So that mobility doesn't mean always private mobility, but it also include like public transport mobility. And for the commercial vehicles, that also means like moving the goods. That means distribution centers, developing like a massive goods movement, and so on. And that's all what I can say. So that the varied pathway, look into what you have, look into what into your strength, but please do not fall into the trap of like not able to sequencing they are like following the trap, like using fossil fuel combustion engine for too long. Thank you.
Thank you. And to Dr. Jakapong, like what is one recommendation you would give?
The recommendation is actually it's a very hard question to answer. I look into the big picture, right? The future mobility, right? Or the sustained mobility. Actually, the first, I think one of the key success factor is the vision of the government or the cities or the people in the city, that what kind of mobility that you would like to have in your area, in your cities. This, in my opinion, is should think about this first. And of course, EV is one part of the urban mobility is clean and safe, and but other mode of transport is also important as well. Like we have the new technology of the digital technology, the ITS. We can use multimodal transportation and use the mobility as a service like the car sharing and other things. I think the technology is one of the important thing as well. We have vision. We have to think about the technology. Should have the clear roadmap and pathway, and should have the clear target of the mobility service in the futures. But it needs very long time, but we have to have a commitment on the vision of the mobility service in the area.
Okay, great. To have the vision and also an idea of what urban mobility looks like beyond just the EV, right? Last, I'll give you 30 seconds to wrap up your thoughts on your recommendation, Mr. Zakaria, and then we'll go into the Q&A session.
Wow. Okay. So quickly, I think for our business for two-wheelers, the making it clean is two parts, right? Number one is the emission, the difference of emission when using the vehicle, and then number two is on the production level, specifically for batteries. I think when using the vehicle, it's just very simple. Just make the electricity cleaner, right? That's it. Like there's no other magic potion. The faster the transition from fossil fuels to say other sources becomes real, that for us automatically makes EVs cleaner. As far as I know, right now it's already cleaner, at least from the usage part versus ICE, even with the coal-based grid, on a gram per kilometers perspective, right? Gram CO2 per kilometers perspective. So that's one thing. Make electricity cleaner, easy. On the production part, I think is a bit more complex, because right now batteries is a global supply chain. It's that massive. There's no one company where they only use supplies from their own country, right? So this is not only a city level or provincial or even nation level initiative. It's a real global level initiative where I think idea, or at least what we had, was pressure or requirements should come from governments, sure, but then also the end consumers has a role to play on expecting like cleaner batteries, right? And whether it means, hey, can I see where my sources of metals are? Can I see who makes this? Where do they get their nickel? Where do they get their iron, etc.? Maybe that's a start, right? But I think that needs a way longer discussion to solve than just a short summary.
Okay, that's a really great note to leave this off at, as this conversation, if we go technical, I'm sure each of you can provide hours of lectures worth of material. And I'm sure if the webinar attendees have some questions, we might send them over. And likewise, if you have any presentations you'd like to share, or any documents you'd like to share to the audience, please also send it to Y4E and we will distribute that. To the Q&A section, we have one question first coming in about EV batteries. I think there's been a lot of interest in both the business side and like the technical side of the EV battery swapping. The question is how EV batteries are managed through subscriptions instead of a buying contract, and how do companies, or in this case Electrum, keep the EV users to keep coming and returning the batteries for checkup in this case, and does this make economic sense? So in essence, is through these subscription models, are you seeing a big uptake and appetite for it? And what does the battery checkup, or how often does that happen in terms of like the safety side of the business? Go ahead.
Okay. So number one, I think subscription brings value on two things, right? Number one is safety, in a sense. The battery operators are the ones who monitor and make sure that you're using a good quality and a good healthy battery where it's less risky, and also making sure that all of the safety parameters are being controlled. Because in a way that's the asset of the battery company. And so it's in a way the enterprise's responsibility to make sure it's working, right? So that's on a safety value. Number two on the value is lower capex, of course, right? You don't need to buy the battery, it's just monthly subscription. But I think number three that we're trying to convey as well is it's also in a way lifetime warranty, because with subscription there really is no end life of your battery. It's just a continuous change of batteries in the cabinet and on, right? And leading to number two, in a way, doing the battery business, the battery subscription, or as an infrastructure business, you're actually naturally incentivized to give good batteries, because that's what makes people stick, and that's what makes brands stick, right? So for us, technology-wise, we have sensors inside the battery. We know the cell's life, we know the cycles, we know the state of health, we know the efficiency, as in what is the kilometers per kilowatt hour being done. We know whether a battery is have errors, or even if it breaks down, or if it goes offline, right? So the data is there, you can design it. It's quite straightforward. But then the next part is, and we've seen this happen, is that if the operator doesn't manage the batteries well and give good quality customer experience, at the end of the day, there is no demand. Like, the customers will just leave because it's that easy. And then enterprises will leave, and then suddenly your infrastructure has no users, and then that's it, right? So we are organically incentivized to provide good customer experience, to provide these good batteries, and then through technology making it happen. And that's the summary of it.
Okay, thank you. We also have another battery life cycle question, and I'll read the question first. It says, while EV are clean in operation, the battery's life cycle from raw material to waste, as mentioned in this discussion as well, is a serious environmental challenge. Why do we not see any EV or battery providers have old battery replacement programs? I guess I would like to ask this question first to the other speakers, in terms of maybe if their research has touched upon different types of businesses, and this discussion about what to do with leftover or like depleted batteries, from maybe an environmental dimension, but as well as an economic dimension, if possible. Would any speakers like to address this question regarding batteries and like end of life of the battery?
May I?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so one thing that the institute where I'm working for is currently conducting research is the possible implementation of an electric vehicle battery passport. So this is kind of digital identification of every battery to be produced and to be used for the electric vehicles. And one example, which is quite the most advanced one, is in the European Union, that they would like to implement this as an obligatory starting from next year, 2027. So it will be part of their European Union directives. So having this passport, it means that each of the battery will have like digital identification, and it also shows the different characteristic of the battery. So the material from which it has been produced, technology, and also the identification of the owner of the brand, and then like the battery health, state of condition, and so on, like safety measures, and then also like kind of a procedure to treat it as waste later on. So this will be very important to have, that this kind of traceability will help us to ensure the sustainability of electric vehicle industry. And this will also request that the other industry will take part, like the circular economy industry, to recycle or to reuse, repurpose the battery that has reached their end of life in the region. Currently, we are looking at how ready ASEAN member states are to have this kind of implementation, and then we will discuss this during the ASEAN Economic Ministerial meeting this year. Thank you.
We're running out of time. I think we have about 2 minutes left before we do group photos, and thank you. I guess this would be a chance for all of the panelists to give their kind of either a call to action or a reminder to our audience, who are predominantly university students and first jobbers aged between 18 to 35 is our current main audience. So would love to have your final takeaways before we move into a group photo. I guess we can start with Mr. Zakaria.
Yeah, so uh, uh, I think for like this industry is always changing. Like we're still at its infancy, right? So having the critical thoughts to question from all aspects, be it regulatory, business, environmental, is the right way to go, right? Because at the end of the day, we do EVs because sure, there's a business sense to it, but most importantly, because we think it's a better solution for the planet, right? Now, if that key objective is not being met, then it's the right time to ask, hey, are we actually doing the right thing or not? Are we now also putting environmental as number one and not only financials as number one? So I think discussions like these and questions like these are important to have for people who are going to this industry. It would be great to have that spirit of questioning, hey, is this industry actually making a positive net impact to the world, right? And going to the technicals of it, understanding the impact of this EV industry, environmentally, financially, socially, I think is the right mindset to have. So it's an interesting one. So it would be great to just have more people inside it.
That's great. That's probably a signal for the audience. If anybody's looking for internships or anybody's based in Jakarta, please do reach out to Electrum, perhaps. I mean, it sounds like they're trying to grow the team and the business if you want to be part of that growth. Next up, can I ask our speaker from ASEAN Center for Energy, Ms. Safina, for your final comments and thoughts?
Sure. Thank you. I really like I learned a lot from this discussion, from other speakers as well, other panelists, and also from the questions from the participants. It's really enlightening as well. So I can summarize that it is not just about putting more EVs on the road, but it's about putting the right EVs in the right places, charging the right way, either through battery swapping, and also looking at the full life cycle assessment from the raw materials to grid decarbonization, because the electricity that being charged to the vehicles is coming from the grid, and we need to make sure that the sources are really clean. Thank you.
Thank you. Love that, touching back to the grid and the bigger infrastructure problems, and not just about the vehicles themselves, and being situationally aware of what's appropriate for which area and what time and which pricing. And up next, I would like to invite Dr. Joko for your final remarks.
I think I have given mine before this. That I would not add anything. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Jakapong then.
Yeah, thank you. And my final message is to the youth. Today we have a participant is the new generation, the young generation in our region. That I would like to say that you are the next generation maybe in the future you have urban planners, engineer, entrepreneurs, or policymaker. Who's know? You have a chance to shape up the transformation in your country, and let ensure that the revolution of the country, your country, or in ASEAN, it for example, for EV, it's not just only fast, but it's truly clean and future ready. And last but not least, see the big pictures. It's a whole picture. Not only one technology as a holy grail, but you have to see all ecosystem. And I give this message for the young generation. I'm very old generation now. I have to retire soon.
That's really great. I love that. It's not just one solution that's a holy grail. I love the discussion today that touches on the grids, the infrastructure, about total cost of ownership. I really think that's an important concept. Talk about, what the savings between ICE and EVs, and, digital infrastructure, and that times generational difference in usage. I think these are all such great keywords and topics. And I do hope that the audience has learned a lot, and hopefully this has been the tip of the iceberg for many of you who may be looking to do research in this area. So hopefully these are very inspirational speakers and people that you can follow, their organizations and companies as well. At this point, I would like to invite all of the attendees as well to turn on their cameras for a group photo. The young generation, we can't do anything. We don't have any photo evidence. So please turn on your cameras, look nice, and find that there's good lighting. We always love good lighting. We don't like bad quality photos. So just give us a moment for everybody else to join us. And I guess I will hand this over. This will be my official thank you on behalf as the moderator and the co-founder of Youth for Energy Southeast Asia. My deepest gratitude to our esteemed panelists for sacrificing your time today, preparing as well as being here in this afternoon. I will now pass the mic to our team organizer, Vito or Val, whoever is managing the photo taking, and please take away the direction, and I will officially finish my MC job now.
Okay, thank you, Tata. So please, everyone, to open your camera. So there will be 2 slides. I will take the first slide pictures. I see more people opening the camera with the virtual background. Thank you so much. Yes. Okay. More people to
So
join?
great to see so many lovely faces. Some sleepy faces, that's totally okay. It's also really nice, especially for the panelists, to finally get to see as well, like who we've been kind of giving our opinions and ideas to. Perhaps some people are even more experts than us in this room, and feel free to engage and discuss these topics. All of them are critical and some of them are slightly controversial, perhaps which direction we want to go. So this is a great opportunity to see everybody.
Okay, I'll start taking the picture. Okay, smile everyone. This is for the first slide. 1, 2, 3. Okay, wait a second. Now for the second slide. Okay, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. The final plug is that Southeast Asia Youth Energy Forum will be happening the 10th to 12th of October in KL. If you're based in KL, our registration links will be open soon. So please have a look. There is no entrance fee. We just need registration. Thank you, everybody. Have a lovely afternoon and weekend. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Have a nice weekend.
Thank you. Bye.